Hi guys, Jeff Nelson here at seperate.com. Welcome back for the weekly bass lesson. Today we're going to talk about 5 simple techniques to improve your bass playing. Today we're going to start out covering hammer-ons, then we're going to move to trills, and then we're going to move to bass slides. Then we're going to cover rest strokes and grace notes. So let's get started with hammer-ons. So what a hammer-on is a note that you play with your fretting hand. So for instance, I play this note and I had to pick it with my picking hand. But for a hammer-on, I'm going to take my pinky and slam it down on the next note that I want to happen. So check this out. You see, I played 2 notes there and I didn't have to pick the second note with my fingers over here. I just had to use this pinky right here to fret that note. And I want you to take note that you can play a hammer-on off of any type of attack. What I mean by that, so I'm going to play a hammer-on starting with a slap. I'm going to play a hammer-on starting with a pluck. I'm going to play a hammer-on based off of a hammer-on attack. So you see there, I didn't pick at all with my right hand. And that's actually the basis of tapping. You're basically using hammer-ons with both hands. And I'll actually show you one of the more common ways to use the hammer-on as a bass player. What you're going to do is you're going to pick any root note and you slap that, then find your octave, okay? So that's the note you want to end up on. So from the note you want to end up on, you want to move down 2 frets, which means towards the tuning pegs. And you're going to pluck this note and hammer on to the note that you want to end up on. So together that's going to sound like this. And you see you can do it the opposite way also. And you can get all kinds of cool grooves just using that one technique I just showed you, for instance. Or anything like that. The next technique I'd like to talk to you guys about is called the trill. And a trill is similar to a hammer-on in the way you execute it. But what you're actually going to do is repeat the hammer-on very quickly. So for instance, you hear the trill there at the end. I just went back and forth between these 2 notes here. The only real difference between a trill and a hammer-on, other than the speed of it, is you have to play the trill on the same string. For instance, if you tried to do this, it wouldn't sound good. And the main point of the trill is to accent the note that you're trying to land on by adding a catchy interval there to catch the ear. So be careful the way you use this, because your note choice very much does matter. You can use any interval with the trill, but your real limitation is the spread of your fingers. So in other words, you can't trill if you can't reach the note you're trying to trill to. And that brings us to bass slides. Now, bass slides are not like guitar slides. We're not going to take a metal object and put it on our fretboard and slide it. We're going to use our fingers, and that's another reason why this technique is also called finger slides. So what you want to do with the slide is you want to find a note you want to start on. So let's choose the top string 12th fret. And then you want to choose a note you want to end on. So let's choose the top string open fret, because that's an octave slide. And what you do is you pick the note that you want to start on, and you're going to hold the string down and slide your finger down, and then pick the note you want to end on. So if I were going to use that in a song, it would sound something like this. So you see how I used it there to accent the beginning note of the song. And don't limit yourself to sliding downwards. You can also do it upwards like this. the next technique I want to talk to you about is called the rest stroke. And this is a very, very important technique for your bass playing, especially if you want to play any kind of funk or anything that requires short staccato notes. The rest stroke is very similar to what it sounds like. Basically, you're making a rest with your stroke or your attack on your guitar. So instead of picking through the string like this, you're going to use your other finger to stop the string. So you're going to alternate like this. And it's very important for you to be able to alternate between your regular attacks and your rest strokes. Otherwise, when you go to play something like this, you're going to have a lot of trouble. You see how that was really staccato and choppy? Try to play that without using rest strokes. It's pretty messy. I mean, there's just no way to do it. Unless you use some other type of muting like palm muting or muting the string with your left hand. And the final technique I want to talk to you guys about today is called the grace note. Grace notes are notes that are inserted before or in between notes, basically just to give it extra character. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. Here's a passage that has grace notes in it. Without the grace notes in it, that passage would only be. But when we added the grace notes, it accented the melody and made it sound sharper, didn't it? The way that grace notes are used a lot of the times, people actually call them pickup notes. So it'll be like 3 or 4 notes that introduce you to a song. And let me show you an example of that too. So in that example, if you didn't have the grace notes, it would just start off instead of going. So there's an example of how it's commonly used. And that's just one of the ways it's commonly used. You can experiment, you can add more or less grace notes. You can try putting them before notes, between notes, behind notes, and just find what sounds good to you. Don't be afraid to experiment with this stuff. Alright, that's it for today, guys. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow the link in the description, and remember to slap at a bass.